And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and it is with great pleasure and privilege for me to introduce to you my guest. He used to be part of RFCLA, but now he is with the Chicago Hounds. But beyond that, he has had an amazing career so far in rugby, not only on the pro scene, but with college and sevens as well. We'll get all into that. But I'd like to introduce Sam Walsh. Sam, welcome to the podcast. How are you feeling, brother?
Thanks, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I've last talked to you. Obviously, the first time that we spoke was when you were with RFCLA year one. It was a great opportunity to meet you. Before that, I don't know if I told you, but I've heard a lot of you because obviously following sevens and college rugby a little bit, being an LA native myself, obviously I hear a lot about what's going on the West Coast with Cal Berkeley. So your name does pop up quite a bit. So it was really cool to be able to finally meet you because I've always heard so much about you. So now that, be able to say that I've actually met the guy. And I gotta say, for people who've never met Sam, amazing guy, really fun to talk to, has a lot of energy. And I know we'll get into it. Things have been not necessarily going as planned, but I've seen some interviews with you recently, especially with the Chicago Hounds played, and I believe this month is still Mental Health Month. So you've been a real big advocate of promoting positivity and doing a lot of stuff of just trying to stay mentally focused regardless of what's going on. How are things going these last couple of days with you?
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate the kind words, but yeah, no, these last couple of days have been good. Have recently got back into training, so have been in now for a week and a half, close to 2 weeks, back fully integrated with just our
Nice.
strength training, which has been good. So had quite a lengthy hamstring rehab there. Ended up being about 8 weeks, but I had initially injured it and then was feeling pretty good around that 3 week mark.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I re-injured it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of had to restart the rehab process again. But no, it was all right, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
plenty
that's
of time to do other things. So
Yeah, no, and that's great. I mean, coming from a guy who's also had a sports background myself and has suffered, in my instance, was a very bad back injury. I know all about relapsing, where you start to feel, yeah, let's go, and then you're like, oh no, you just went too far. So I'm glad that it wasn't too severe. 8 weeks is, I know 8 weeks may seem like a lifetime, but hey, I mean, I mentioned before we started our interview, we have players here in RFCLA who unfortunately are out for the whole season. So
yeah,
the fact that you could at least come back, and we'll talk more into it when we get into your rehab about the possibility of coming back for at least the last couple of games. I mean, that's a godsend in itself, right?
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, injuries are tough in itself, especially with a short season like the MLR.
Mhm.
You have limited time, but I mean, you just got to make the most of it when it happens and try and find things you can get on with or things you can work on in like different spaces. So,
Right, right. All right. Well, let's go back because we always got to go back to the start. So, you've had a very interesting life growing up from my perspective. Born and raised in Boston, Mass, but then moved rather quickly to Hong Kong. What age were you when your family moved decided to go to Hong Kong?
yeah, so yeah, I was born in Boston, like you said, and then it was when I was one years old,
Mm,
I moved over to Hong Kong, and from there, my two younger brothers were born in Hong Kong. Grew up there, loved it. Grew up playing. Like most of my friends played rugby when I was young, so that's how I got into it.
mhm.
And then when I was 15, or maybe a bit before then, like always had an interest in playing for the US and wanting to go professional. And around the 11th grade or so in Hong Kong, there's a lot of expats, so a lot of
Mhm.
British expats, and most of them will go back to boarding school and do that. And I wanted a similar experience. And luckily enough, was able to convince my parents to look at boarding schools in New Zealand. So
Right, right, right. I saw that.
yeah, New Zealand being, obviously notorious with their rugby and what they produce in the sport, like
Mhm.
wanted to immerse myself and it was something different, a different challenge. And yeah, I was lucky enough that my parents agreed, as long as like I found a good school that supported me academically as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going to Scots College in New Zealand for
Mm-hmm.
2.5 years. And no, that was awesome. It was an all boys school at the time, which was different. Definitely a culture shock, but no, I loved it. And then from there, had a little bit of time before I started college. So did another gap year or so in Australia for,
Oh, okay.
yeah, for like 6.5, 7 months, and was with the Brumbies International Academy there. And
Mm-hmm.
then from then started off at Cal. And
Yeah. So,
for,
like I said,
yeah.
that's a very, very interesting and diverse, background for you. Let's go back. So, again, for many people that are subscribing to my YouTube channel or getting into my YouTube channel, it's a lot of American fans. So, rugby is still very much a brand new sport, and also, I hate to admit it, a lot of us Americans tend to be very close-minded when it comes to the rest of the world, right? So it is great when I get to talk to a lot of players from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, different parts of the world with different cultures, to get a little bit more of a intro of how their culture is developed around rugby. So Hong Kong, like you mentioned, a lot of expats, a lot of British expats. Is rugby, like in Britain or Australia, New Zealand, pretty much part of your childhood in Hong Kong, or is that still kind of something you have to look for or search out?
No, it is part of the culture, just because every year with the Hong Kong Sevens,
Mm-hmm.
it's the biggest event, sporting event each year. So yeah, like all my friends would go every year. Grew up going to it, and that was kind of like my first taste and like first exposure of like the USA rugby players. And then
Mm-hmm.
kind of from there, it was like, the dream was to represent the US and do it in Hong Kong. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to do it. So that was super cool. But yeah, that's kind of where it started.
Got it. And then, of course, like you said, you had the opportunity or you wanted to do like what if a lot of your childhood friends did with the boarding school, because again, they're expats. So they're obviously going to go back to possibly Britain, wherever it is that they're coming from. So, New Zealand, what another different culture. What did you like about the New Zealand culture comparatively to growing up in Hong Kong?
Oh, it was different. It was super different. But the biggest thing that I found with going to school in New Zealand and then coming back for like breaks, for like summer breaks and things like that in Hong
Mm-hmm.
Kong, was just the different pace of life. Like,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
yeah, Hong Kong was a lot faster,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more
Sure.
go go,
Sure.
whereas you can kind of slow down a bit in New Zealand. And people really took time to like build relationships in New Zealand.
Mm.
And you can kind of just tell it's more of like a community focus, like community care in New Zealand.
Mhm.
I'm
Mm.
not saying that Hong Kong isn't, but it's just people are constantly, either leaving Hong Kong or they're not there for a long time.
Yeah, I can
Um,
see that. Yeah, yeah. Because of the being an expat and everything.
Definitely.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. So now let's talk about the rugby experience then. Playing rugby in Hong Kong. Not being completely honest, the Hong Kong 15 sevens program in Hong Kong, not necessarily known as much as obviously like New Zealand or even Australia. But what was it like growing up playing rugby in Hong Kong and then immersing yourself in the New Zealand structure, and then later on with the Brumbies Academy with Australia?
Yeah. So growing up in Hong Kong, it's like kind of that's where I first like found the love. Like from a young age, you're exposed to it a lot because Super Rugby is shown on TV, Rugby
Mm-hmm.
League is shown on TV. Obviously, you have the sevens. And so growing up, it was interesting because you'd be playing against other expat kids who were from France, who were from England, who were from, South Africa, Australia. So the biggest thing that I took was that everyone was pretty skillful. Like, you can see now some of the kids and some of the guys that have kicked on, like Lucas Lecamp and
Mm-hmm.
Fran Santos, Ryan Santos.
Mm-hmm.
I was like that, who have like even Marcus Smith grew up in Singapore, had some ties to
Right,
Hong Kong.
right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and those like early 2000s, a lot of those expat kids just very skillful. just because we're exposed to like the sevens, exposed to like kind of flary rugby league and those
Hmm.
types of players. So
Sure.
that was awesome. Yeah, play every weekend. When we were younger as well, you'd play a lot of games. Like I remember we'd have like school games on a Tuesday, and
Wow.
then after that school game, it would be from like 2 to 3:30, and then after then you're training with your club at 5. So have a
Wow.
little break, train, and then you're playing for your club on the weekend
Wow.
on
And then you
Sunday,
also still have school. You still have school to
and you
go to
still
as
have
well.
school
Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, it was just huge in terms of just playing
Hmm.
and getting exposed to it and just learning the game.
Hmm.
And then from there, moving to New Zealand, the biggest difference there was just like the size and skill of players. Like players were skillful, but like some of the Polynesian boys, like some of the
Hmm.
Fijian boys are they're huge. So
Yeah.
it was
Big. They're big.
yeah. Like for me, being a kid in Hong Kong, I was like, maybe one of the bigger kids at like
Sure. Sure.
5'10" or so.
Yeah. Sure. I can
And then
see that.
you go over to New Zealand, and then when I was there at school, the Umaga Jensen twins were there, Alex Fido,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Connor Garden Bashop,
Hmm.
players like this who were like great schoolboy players, and then
Hmm.
even kicked on like were huge. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
Ungas were like 6'3", like massive guys. Alex
Hmm.
Fido was like 300 pounds or so. So
Sure. Sure. And that's back in the day. That's back when he was a kid.
yeah, so that's when he was like 16, 17. Like
Right. Right.
there's
Right.
just different. So I felt skill wise I was there. It was just like the physicality and probably just even upskilling as well. Like upskilling as well was huge, just like the micro details.
Hmm.
And then so that was an awesome experience. Got to play with the first 15 in my last year. But it took like a lot of effort and a lot of like time on my own training to be able to compete at that level.
Sure.
So I was super proud to like make that squad. And then after, since we ran on like a yearly calendar from January to December, school or university in the US wouldn't start until the following fall. So I had a bit of time.
Hmm.
And so from there, an opportunity to train with the Brumbies International Academy was there. And then so I took it and was there for 6 to 7 months.
Hmm.
And was just playing club rugby with the Colts, which was like under 21s,
Hmm.
and then doing my own training with the international guys, a couple guys from Japan would train with, and then we'd also be integrated with the main academy, which was awesome. And at the time, it was pretty cool. Like there were guys in the academy like Len Iketel,
Oh, okay.
yeah, Noah Lolesio,
Oh, no, it's good. He's become a great player.
yeah, Ross Lonigan. So guys like this who have now like kicked on to like play a lot for the Brumbies and
Hmm.
play for
Hmm.
Australia, which is sick. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So now as you mentioned, you decided your goal was always to play for the United States. So obviously that meant having to come back technically to home. Again, I'm assuming even though you moved to Hong Kong at age 1, did you make a couple of trips back to the United States to at least visit America, or have you
yeah,
never
yeah.
been to
So
America?
yeah, my parents made it like a priority every year. We come back during the summer.
Okay,
So
okay, okay.
we always came back to see family in Boston and in Maryland.
Hmm. Hmm.
And just see family, catch up with family, and just make sure like we still had our roots tied down, and
Sure.
yeah, we're
So
close
then,
to family.
now I'm curious to wonder why. I mean, Cal's great, obviously. I mean, being a West Coast bias and everything, Cal's great. But there's a lot of great schools on the East Coast, obviously, if the rugby is the focus, right? So then, what brought you over to Cal instead to play rugby? Or I'm assuming to play rugby, right? That was the focus to come to the States for school.
Yeah, yeah. So early on, me and my brother Charlie, we did like an Atavis camp when they were around, and we were looking at colleges. I was probably 15. I was still in New Zealand, and we just wanted to get exposed to the American like system.
Sure.
And so from there, obviously, I had kind of started thinking about colleges. because I knew I was going to come back to the US,
Hmm.
and was looking at some colleges on the East Coast like Dartmouth and
Of
Brown.
course.
At the time, Greg McWilliams was at Yale, but it might have been too much of a stretch. But
Yale is not an easy school to get into. Yale is not an easy school to get into.
no, and then so just looking at other colleges, like Cal was just notorious. So
Mm.
um yeah, visited like when I had first visited the campus and had kind of seen what the facilities were like, what the coaches were like. It was a bit of a no-brainer from there.
Okay, great. So you fell in love with Cal, and obviously you enrolled over there from 18 to 2022. Picked up a couple of championships with the Sevens in Cal, three consecutive. I don't even know if the Pac-7 is still around, but the Pac-7 championships with the conference that they were playing in. So I'm assuming because of Hong Kong Sevens, obviously Sevens must have been a love for you, but you've also played with 15s. Was there a preference for you at that time of which one you wanted to play for?
Yeah, so growing up, I always wanted to play for the USA Sevens, and
Okay,
the dream was to play USA Sevens and then play in Hong Kong for the Sevens. Like that was
right, got it.
one of the dreams. But also growing up, like I wanted to do both. I wanted to do Sevens and 15.
Mm,
So having done the Sevens now and kind of fulfilled that dream of actually playing at the Sevens, where I grew up watching the guys,
right, right.
watching like the legends like Zach Test, Danny
Mhm,
Barrett, guys like that.
mhm.
To have been able to do it has been awesome. And then now the goals kind of just change, and working towards that 15s team now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then so you jumped to it, but like I said, like you said, you were able to make your dream come true. You got picked up with the USC Sevens. You made your debut in Hong Kong. So first of all, let's backtrack a little bit. How did you get onto the radar of the USA Sevens? What was the process for that?
Yeah. So in college, there are multiple teams like you can look to make, like the under 23s, the collegiate all Americans. And for me in my junior year, I made it a goal to make the collegiate all American under 23s for the Sevens.
Mm-hmm.
And the competition you play in then was Rugby Town.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was my first exposure to like a USA setup, like sevens wise. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, sorry, no, that's not true. So I'd played a Falcon series before starting
Oh, okay.
at Cal when I was 18 or 19.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like it was, I got in through there through some like pathway coaches I knew, and was lucky enough to get that exposure. Went to like South American tour in Uruguay and Chile, and that was awesome. And so I was always kind of on the radar when I was at college,
Mm-hmm.
and I made it a point that I wanted to play for the USA Sevens. Like in my junior year, I texted Mike Friday, like, what can I do to like get myself in? Like
Mm-hmm.
talking to guys like Ben Pinkelman has started getting into the player pathways.
Sure.
JD Stevenson was huge for me, helping me out. So it was just, yeah, it was kind of getting exposed at a young age, but then also just making it known that I wanted to play sevens.
Mm-hmm.
And then so from there, did that in my junior year, and then um, was in talks with Mike. And then, yeah, after my senior year, was invited to come down to Chula Vista and train full time. Nothing like signing a full contract or anything, but
Right. Just an opportunity, right?
yeah, exactly. An opportunity, like kind of have a look at you, and then from there, anything can happen.
Right.
Yeah, and then so from then graduated, went down to Chula. Was actually rehabbing my ACL at the time.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, so was very lucky for them to kind of help me out with that last little bit of rehab.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, from there earned a full-time contract and was there for like a year and a half, close to 2 years.
So, and it happened. You finally were given the chance to be a USA Sevens player. So, how did it feel? Walk me through the moment when you were told, "Hey, you did it. You got yourself a contract." What was going through your head?
Yeah, it was no, super grateful at the time. Like it had been like a goal of mine since, since the start of college or since I was young. But when I was in college, I always kind of had that as my like North Star
Mm-hmm.
almost. And so to be told, yeah, that they'd be bringing me on full time as a resident was awesome. And so that's kind of when like you'll be fully contracted when they bring you into that residency program. And
Mm-hmm.
that just means you're training full time at Chula Vista. And yeah, like a full time athlete there.
Right. So then, how did you feel when you were told, "Hey, you're going to suit up now, and it's going to be in Hong Kong"?
Yeah, that was surreal. Like, no, I've said it before, but like that was actually like unreal knowing that like when the team was announced, would be involved and would be part of it just because like I've been kind of dreaming about that moment and like dreaming about
Sure.
representing the US on that field. Um, yeah, and so it was an awesome feeling, like one of the highlights for sure. And then to actually like run out at like Sokampo was unreal. Like the stands are just on top of you and you can kind of just see the crowd on you. And the other thing too, which is a bit bittersweet, but now they've got the new Kai Tak Stadium, which looks awesome.
Right. And it's gorgeous. It's
Yeah,
gorgeous. It looks
yeah.
beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. So I'm very grateful I was able to play like the old stadium because that's the one like I wanted to
Right. And you
play
grew up
in.
visiting and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm assuming, did you call up your family? Did you tell your friends? Did you say, "Hey, I'm gonna be there, get tickets and everything"?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I told my family immediately. Told my family, told my girlfriend, and everyone was super, super excited.
Sure.
Yeah, told my friends as well, and yeah, they were able to make it, which was great. So, yeah, no, it was awesome, and
That's awesome.
it
That's
was
awesome.
the other cool thing was like it was the first kind of big sporting event that Hong Kong had put on since COVID.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of like Hong Kong's coming out party of like,
Sure. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that must have been so hyped right there. That's great. That's
yeah,
awesome. A little bit more of your time with Seven, just because that was kind of, I think I told you that was kind of how I got into rugby myself. Just happened to turn on and was watching Seven, so I was like, this is amazing.
mm,
So I grew up around the era, a bit before you joined, but definitely I know the people that you played with like Madison Hughes and
yeah,
Barrett. But I want to talk about, he's no longer head coach, but Mike Friday, because I mean, if you ever meet the guy, he is just a lot of fun to talk to, but just a lot of energy. What
yeah.
was it like having Mike Friday as a coach?
Yeah, it's super interesting with Mike. He's a very detail oriented coach,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
and he's definitely a coach for the players, like advocates for the players. So coming into that environment, it was awesome. Just to, like see how he saw the game,
Mm-hmm.
learn kind of how he ran the structure and what made the USA so successful at the time. Like with that team in 2018, 2019, um, you could kind of see everything that Mike had put in there and was still using. So that was really cool to get exposed to and really cool to learn as well.
Yeah, no, he's a really great guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him and working with him on Rugby Tens actually in Chula Vista, and
Yeah.
he is such a cool guy to talk to. Just the knowledge that he has, it's pretty it's pretty amazing
Yeah,
to
no,
talk
it's
to.
his detail and yeah, it's second to none. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've spent a couple of years with the Rugby Sevens program. What made you decide to shift over to 15s with MLR?
Yeah. So to be honest, like towards the end of my time at sevens, like I hadn't been playing too much and was working pretty hard, like really hard. And I knew as well that I could play 15s and
Mm-hmm.
sevens. I kind of achieved what I wanted with playing in Hong Kong and then had been on some awesome tours with the Falcons, like to Fiji and
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. And it was a bit tough cracking that team when I was there because that year prior, that team or the sevens was getting ready for the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of felt like that team was getting solidified and it would be hard to get a lot of minutes and to be able to play a lot of games. So kind of just made the decision to make the transition to 15s and look towards chasing my goals in that space. And then so from there, the timing kind of worked out perfect because LA was a new team at the
Right.
time last year. And so it seemed like a great opportunity, a great change of scenery. And yes, still in California.
Right.
Loved San Diego. So yeah, I mean, Hermosa Beach wasn't too far up the coast, but
Yeah.
yeah. So decided to make the change, and yeah, no, I loved my time in LA.
So again, to introduce to newer fans who are still getting used to just rugby in general, sevens and 15s, two, easily you could say two distinct games, even though they're the same game, but two different types of play style. What is the difference with training and preparation for you, preparing for a sevens game in comparison to preparing for a 15s game?
Yeah, so with sevens, yeah, like you said, they're the same game, but they're also two completely different games, like two completely different energy systems in the sense that like when we're training for sevens, you're running at about 70 to 80% the whole time.
Right.
So training will reflect that in terms of like conditioning games. We're playing like 7-on-7, full field, like 4 minute periods, going hard out. And so, yeah, you're never like taking a break longer than like, you know, 15 seconds. So you're constantly your heart rate's at such a high pace, and you're just running constantly at a very high load. So it was a lot of like running. The conditioning aspect was huge, obviously, because to be successful in sevens, to play sevens at a high level, like you obviously have to be fit. Comparing that to 15s is more tactical, it's more physical, and it's more physical in the sense like you're taking more contact, but that contact is a little bit heavier.
Mm,
Like sevens players tend to be slightly lighter, like they're not all um 250 pounds, mostly like sevens players now, like heaviest would be maybe just over 200 pounds
right.
or 220. So yeah, you're taking more contact. It's obviously a bit more different with playing against 15 players compared to sevens. Some of the tactics in 15s, like you can play it in a completely different way, whereas sevens, there are different playing styles, but essentially it's a very attacking focused game. 50,
Right.
you can kind of make it what it is, whether you want to be an attacking team, a defensive team, a kicking team. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm. So, is it accurate to say maybe 15 is a little bit more you got to be a little bit more logistical with your approach?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And like being like a fly half playing 15s, you're thinking about tactics, you're thinking about managing your forwards' energy, you're
Mm.
place to call in different parts of the field.
Mhm.
Not to say that's not with sevens, but sevens, it's more like you're playing freely. There's not too much set piece, um, like tactics that go along with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, and but it is the really challenging part of sevens is like the mental side with backing up games, and then while you're in games, like being able to think clearly and execute.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I think most sports in general, and you might agree or disagree with me with this, but I think a lot of people when they watch sports, they don't see how much thought has to go into the game itself, right? They just see people running around and doing their thing. But I feel like with rugby, people misconsume that there isn't any like thought that goes into it. But for certain players, like you say, like a scrum half or a fly half, you really got to know what you're doing almost at all times. Otherwise, the game could be lost, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like um the preparation that goes behind sevens and 15s is so much. Like for sevens, there's a limited number of tournaments, and between those tournaments, you're scouting teams, you're
Mm,
running your opposition teams as like scout their plays, their tendencies,
Mm,
trying to create plans that will work for your team against those teams and
right, right.
your tendencies. So, and then on the 15 side, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
But it's just you're playing week in, week out. So you have to be able to learn and adapt very quick.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, there is a lot of method to the madness, but no, it's good.
So you spent a year here in LA, which we'll go back and talk about year one with LA because it definitely was an experience. I understand with a lot of the players, yourself. After year one, made the transition over to Chicago, where actually you were part of their academy system, correct? First,
Yeah.
okay. What was that like going over to Chicago? Well, first of all, what was it like making the transition from warm, sunny LA to Chicago, and then being part of their academy system?
Yeah. So coming to Chicago, I visited just to see my girlfriend during the summer.
Mm.
And the weather was quite nice, and yeah, it looked awesome. Like obviously you can walk around in the summer, and it's very
Sure.
clean city to walk around like in the summer.
In the summer.
In the summer.
In the summer.
Um, so then at the time I was off contract with LA, and my girlfriend was here. I'd heard really good things about the team in Chicago.
Hmm.
Had heard some players were moving around. And I just heard the organization in Chicago was like an awesome organization to be part of. And so I reached out to Will McGee and
Mm.
um, was just wondering, or backtrack a little bit. So I'd met up with a friend, Michael Basca, and
Okay.
the scrum half on the Hounds,
Hmm.
and we were out for lunch, and I'd expressed interest that I wanted to come to Chicago, like had heard good things, and he was like, "Oh, you should talk to Will and ask him about the academy. Like, I mean, if you get in front of them, like, who knows what can happen."
Right.
And so I was like, "Oh yeah, like, that's a good idea." And so I reached out to Will McGee, who's the director of operations here at the Hounds, and reached out to him and was like, "I hear there's an academy season there's an academy season happening. Is there any way I can get involved?" And he, yeah, luckily for me, he was like, "Yeah, like we'd love to have you involved. Here's like our schedule." And then he jumped on a call with me and was like, like this is a legitimate opportunity for you. Like if things go well, like you can earn like a contract here. So, I mean, that was another huge motivator for me. And yeah, then I'd spent September through to November here. And yeah, was just here looking to earn a contract, and yeah, was able to do it through the academy season. And that was when Chicago was starting to get cold and was starting
Yeah.
to like trying to
so,
change.
so is there any kind of regrets? You're like, oh no, I don't know, I want to be here.
No, not really, to be honest. Like not really. Like it wasn't too cold, and like
Sure.
the other things too was like Chicago's it's such a food city, and like I enjoy
Ah, okay.
trying different food spots and
Yeah, I can definitely
kind of
see
that
that. I
side
can
of
definitely
things.
see that. Yeah. Chicago
Yeah,
definitely is known for their food. Yeah, for sure. So,
yeah,
yeah. And again, not a I hate. I mean, you came from, well, technically your family's from Boston, Mass, but I mean, you could have wound up in much colder places than Chicago. So,
yeah.
it's
That's
not
true.
it's
That's
not too
true.
bad. So, now let's go back with the Chicago organization. You came in at a time where there was, like you said, players coming in and out. There was transition. There also was a coaching change. I mean, that coaching change happened a little bit earlier. Ironically, that coach Sam Harris is now over with LA, your former team, but now you have a new coach Chris Latham, who actually has a lot of similarities with you because he also was a sevens player, as well as as a 15s player with Australia with the Wallabies.
Mm.
So, have you been able to connect at all with head coach Chris Latham and anything, and maybe discuss like similarities or pick his brain on his approach to the game?
Yeah, so I mean I hadn't known or I hadn't worked with Chris at all before coming into the Hounds for this year, but kind of everything that he's laid out for the team, like the path that we're on, the values and things we live as a team have been second to none, like unreal. Like he's a coach and a leader. Like guys can get behind, I can follow. Like guys love his energy and
Hmm.
what he brings and his enthusiasm to push the envelope, like in our game and like to see how far we can go. That's been awesome. And then just kind of connecting with him. The other thing he said the other day was just that like he was sharing his path to like the Wallabies, and what what many people didn't know and what I didn't know was that he had to grind for like a couple years with
Sure.
Queensland and like to
Hmm.
even get an opportunity. He didn't play like he maybe played two Super Rugby games in 2 years.
Wow.
He got sorry, that was with the Waratahs, and then he moved over to Queensland for an opportunity, and that's when he took off. So it was just interesting to hear his story and to see how much work he had to put in, and
Sure.
something I can really resonate with, and
Sure.
something that I can relate to, and just like understanding, like, look, like he's done it, like stay the path, like
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Trust the process.
exactly, trust the
Yeah.
process.
So, and speaking of that, now let's go into so getting ready for the season. I'm sure super hyped, new town, new season, and unfortunately, as we talked about at the very beginning, you injured your hamstring. What exactly was it? Was it a strain? Was it a slight tear? What happened? The initial injury.
Yeah, so the initial injury was just a grade one strain, I think.
Okay.
What had happened was it was just in training. Was just sprinting, had made a break and was sprinting, and then at the end I just felt like a little pop, and I'd done my hamstring before, so I knew what it felt like,
Mm,
and was like, oh, like I knew I had done it, and I mean that's essentially what it was. But then at the time had done it, and we'd had a bye the week after, so I was obviously bummed, and people were saying like, if there's a time to do it, it's now. Like
right. Right. Got a little
I
time to
wasn't in,
recover. Yeah.
I wasn't in the roster for that weekend, and then yeah, give me time to recover. Exactly. So yeah, that was the initial injury.
Okay. And then how much longer after that did the real or the really bad injury happen?
Yeah, so it was probably 3 weeks after that. Like
Okay.
I had kind of come to the tail end of that first grade one strain rehab.
Hmm.
And then as I was getting back into training, yeah, it happened again. It was just like a slight contact from a teammate, and I had overextended myself, and
Hmm.
it happened again, and it was slightly worse. So they don't give grades just because they don't want us to be attached to a timeline, but it was probably
Sure.
like a grade one and two. So
Mm.
that projected timeline was about like 4 to 6. So
Yeah. So then, and yeah, we talked about this where it is part of the game, right? I mean, it's a contact sport. There's going to be injuries, but I feel now more so than ever, how you approach the injury mentally is probably the saving grace, right? Whether than to just kind of get down on yourself or just try to pick yourself up and just trust the process, get through the rehab. You've decided to chronicle because you already were doing your stuff on Instagram already, but you started to chronicle your rehab training with Sam Walsh training, and we'll put the actual lettering of it because there's a one involved and an underscore. So there's a little bit of a unique way of writing it. But so anyone could follow you. Right now, you're in day 26 into 27, or at least that's the last one I saw of you posting. What made you decide to chronicle your rehab on Instagram?
yeah, well, kind of content and kind of the way the game's going, just with more people putting themselves out there with content and trying to grow the game in that sense. That was one aspect of it, but then I also wanted to do it for myself, just
Mhm.
documenting each day to see the progress, and how I was going with my rehab, and just share it because it's something that rugby players will go through, and athletes will go through with injuries, and um, yeah, just share it with people who may be facing similar things or facing other adversity to, who knows, like take lessons from, whether it's the actual process or just take inspiration from, and yeah, just keep going with what they're dealing with.
And I don't want to be, if this is a spoiler or not, but you've already told to me that fortunately it sounds like you've gotten past now the time period, and possibly your rehab is over and you're getting ready to suit back up with the Hounds again.
Yeah, so yeah, I've been lucky enough now to be back in the training squad for about 2 weeks, I'd say. And so yeah, I need to do a better job with updating those videos. But yeah, no, I've been lucky now to be back training, and yeah, grateful to be back and to be able to be pushing for contention for selection, and really targeting those like back end games of the season.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, I gotta say, and I talked about this before on my YouTube videos overseeing the league. I've always felt Chicago was a team that on paper it has so much potential. And I feel this season has been that season where they've just been really up there. I mean, they've been right now, they're battling New England for first. Not to toot RFCLA's horn, but we got a pretty good win on Monday against you guys. We were just able to steal it away from you. So, but that was a tough one. But despite that, I mean, Chicago has been looking great. And because of the way things are going, not only in the Western Conference, but the Eastern Conference, these last couple of games are pretty crucial for you guys, not only in being in the playoffs, but having that home pitch advantage throughout the playoff system.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these last couple games will be key, obviously, to clinch a playoff spot, and um, it'll kind of decide who will play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, this season's been awesome for the team. Yeah, have really enjoyed it, and it kind of just comes back to our culture and the way our coaches have set up our year for us to be able to succeed. And also the buy-in for all the players in the team, like whether or not starting or not, like in the 23 or not, like everyone has bought into what we're trying to do here this year, and then
Mm-hmm.
build for years to come. So
That's awesome, and I think that's very important. Obviously, with the way that rugby is, it's definitely a team sport. If everybody's in, I feel that makes a big difference, right?
yeah, 100%. Like for me, I've been on like we call it like our mongrel side, which is like the scout side, and pretty much like if we at the moment can set up the guys who are starting or in the 23 super well, um, for them to put out a performance and to get the job done, then we all win come
Right.
weekend. So
Yeah. It's a team effort. Team effort. So
yeah.
speaking of your team, so new team for you moving from LA to Chicago. Was there anybody on the Chicago squad? And you got a lot of great talent. You got first and foremost Dylan the Butcher Fawcett. You got a guy that I love because he used to be a Giltinis player, Luke White, one of the nicest dudes off the pitch. Heard not necessarily the nicest guy on the pitch, but definitely one of the nicest guys off the pitch. But was there anybody with Chicago? You mentioned that you kind of got in through Michael Baska. But is there anybody from Chicago that kind of went out of their way to welcome you, or really took you under their wing once you came over?
Ooh. Yeah, Michael was huge for me, and we've become close friends. Um, the other players that have Butcher was awesome for like when I had first come into the team. He'd given me a call and just welcomed me to the team, which
That's awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I kind of think just naturally it's been just growing close with the other nines and tens. So quite close now with Chris and Tim Sweel.
Yeah, Tim Swill's been really good. He's been really good. Hasselbeck has been real good too, both of them.
Yeah, so those guys have been cool just to like pick their brains and learn off each other. So it's kind of those guys, but meeting all the other guys, like you said, like Whitey and Butcher and Rumble and
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
nuts. It's been cool, and the really cool thing about our team is like you can sit with anyone at lunch, like there's no clicks at all. So it's everyone's pretty comfortable with one another, and I think it just shows on the field and kind of shows in the performances that the team's had.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what I like to do, we're about finishing up with our interview. What I've been doing with a lot of people, and I kind of did this with you back when you were with RFCLA, kind of getting to know a little bit more about you as well as a little bit more about your teammates. First of all, with you, other than rugby, is there any other interest that you have outside, like, or is it all just rugby 24/7 for you?
No, it's not all rugby 24/7. It definitely was like a couple years ago, but
Sure.
since then, like I've really made a conscious effort, like off the field, to pursue other interests. So quite interested at the moment in looking at sports tech,
Oh, okay.
venture capital down the line.
Sure. Oh, wow. Okay. Big money stuff.
It's just some things that I find interesting, and then with the training side of things, like looking at the online coaching side of things and
Hmm.
helping younger players develop their game,
Sure.
whether it's like skills, nutrition, things like that. What else? The free time, like to go try different food out here in
Yeah.
Chicago,
As we mentioned.
with my
Do
girlfriend. Yeah.
you, so let me ask you this, because I've always asked my Chicago friends this, and obviously, like, literally, there was one Chicago friend that answered differently than others. Deep dish or thin crust pizza?
Yeah, so I haven't tried the Tavern just yet, but have
Okay.
tried the deep dish,
Mm.
and yeah, love going to Pequod's, which is
Okay.
notorious place here in Chicago.
So the deep dish has won you over then.
Yeah, yeah, I think it has for the moment. I need to
Okay.
find a tavern spot.
Right.
One just opened, so need to give it a try.
Sure, sure, sure. And then now let's get to know a little bit more about your new teammates in Chicago. So obviously training, it's very physical. You have to be. Which of your Hounds teammates would you not want to take a tackle from? I There's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot to choose from on your. But if you had to avoid one teammate,
um, I would say quite close with this guy as well. I'd say maybe Matt Orr.
oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty big and fast.
Yeah, he's a beast in the gym, and yeah, he's physical and played sevens back in the day
Yep,
as
in
well. So
Canada. Yep, yep, yep.
that's how we got kind of close talking about
Sure,
sevens.
sure.
But yeah, he's a pretty phenomenal athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty excited when I heard that he made the transition over to MLR because from the Canadian Sevens program. So that's great. That's very cool. So then now, say you had to go back home to Hong Kong, okay, and for whatever reason you forgot your passport, and you only had time to call one of your teammates, and you had to know that this teammate would do anything to make sure they got you your passport. Which of
Ooh.
your teammates would do that?
I call Michael Baska.
Oh, okay. So Basca's the responsible one.
Yeah, I'd say
Got
so.
it. Now, on the flip side, who would you never call in this situation? Because you know for a fact either they won't pick up the phone or purposely they would just ignore you.
Oh,
And we mean this, of course, in just a loving, fun way.
maybe like Kobe Baker.
Oh, okay. All right. So not necessarily the responsible one of the team.
No, no, he's good. I just give him stick.
Ah, got it, got it, got it. Another one that a lot of people have been enjoying. So obviously, I don't know if you've been paying attention with the one gorilla versus 100 guys. You know that's kind of gone viral.
Yeah.
Similar to that, but we're not involving a gorilla, and obviously we don't promote violence here on this podcast. But let's just say you were in a bar and you're just minding your own business, and all of a sudden, let's say like 10 guys kind of come up on you and go, hey, we don't like you. You're not getting out of this bar in one piece. You had to have, let's say, three of your Hounds teammates back you up to make sure you get out of the bar in one piece.
Yep.
Who would those three teammates be?
I would go Dylan Fawcett, the
Of
butcher.
course, of course.
I'll go butcher. I would go Mason Flesh,
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's a big dude.
and I would go our Captain Rumble.
Yeah, Rumble would be a good one too. Yeah, I think Rumble and Butcher themselves would probably be a duo that I don't think most people would want to mess with
Yeah,
at bar or anything.
no,
So,
like Rumble's a super nice guy, but yeah,
right.
when it's on, it's on.
Sure. I can totally see that. A last one, a favorite too. So, say you're stuck on an island and you're going to be there for about a month. You have all the supplies you need, food and everything. You'll be okay. Okay, you don't have to worry about escaping either because you'll get off in a month. But you had to have one of your Hounds teammates to be your island mate for that month. Who would you pick?
I would go with Island Mate. I'd go with Tim Swiel.
Tim Swiel, interesting.
Yeah.
He's just a guy you can get along with, and
Yeah, I would just have some deep conversations.
oh, there you go. There you go. I like that. I like that. All right. Close it up with the podcast. So my last question before I get to the final one, it was one that kind of came on to me, and I'm kind of interested. So we talked about that your dream is ultimately to play for the USA. You already accomplished your first dream, of course, of playing sevens USA. I'm assuming you'd probably want to try to do 15s USA as well here, right?
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah,
was there ever any thoughts of playing for Hong Kong?
there definitely was. Just having roots in Hong Kong and obviously knowing a lot of people in the Hong Kong rugby setup,
Mm-hmm.
there definitely there definitely was. But at the moment, the goal is to play for the US and yeah, pursue that one.
Yeah. I honestly, I feel you have a great chance to do that. I mean, especially now, I think all the attention is for the U.S. So I think every talented young player we have is we're trying to get them up there. So it's a great goal to have. Now, last question. Again, purpose of this YouTube channel is to introduce rugby to an American audience who aren't too familiar with the sport itself. And I'm sure you've gotten this question asked you a lot, but say somebody comes up to you and goes, "So what is this rugby thing? What is it all about? Why should I care about rugby?" What would your answer be to them?
So I care about rugby. Would you say in the playing sense or just in the general
Just
sense?
in general sense, say again, someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey, I heard you're a rugby player. So what's so great about this rugby thing? Like why do you love it?"
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like having played for so long and being a part of different cultures and environments and things like that, I think the biggest thing that I've taken is just like the camaraderie and like the unity of rugby. So when I say unity, I say like if you're a rugby fan or like a rugby player, like you understand what the values are about. You understand how to treat one another, like win or lose. Like after games, as players, we're shaking hands. Like when you're in the stands watching and there's an opposition fan, like you can have a bit of banter with them, but it never gets ugly. Like there's always like a common like camaraderie and like decency with one another, which I think is awesome. And then just playing the game as well, like anyone, any shape, size, skin color, anything can be a part of the same team and yeah, work towards like a common goal as well. So I think that's what makes the game so cool, so awesome, and yeah, why like a part of why I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's it. That's a great answer right there. So, Sam, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. It shocked me that it's already been an hour and it just went by so quickly. But it's been great catching up with you. Before I go, what is your Instagram or social media that you want people to follow? Obviously, we'll put up Sam Walsh training right here, and there is a one in the wash with an underscore training. Is there any other social medias that you want us to know about?
That's sweet. My own one is Sam Walsh, just with a one again. Yeah, I just got creative and just added the training on the other one. But
Sure.
no, yeah, that's great. Can connect on Instagram and yeah, talk to any players, aspiring professional players, or anyone who wants to talk about the game, or just if you're a fan in general. Yeah, love.
There you go. There you go. And again, congrats on getting through with the rehab. I know it wasn't easy, but I'm glad that you're looking like you're on the other end of it. Good luck with the rest of the season. Hey, it'd be great if maybe it's a Hounds LA final. You know, that'd be awesome to see for the Shield. But I wish you all the best. I'm really happy that, again, you're in a good place and everything's running smoothly. Hopefully, maybe in the future, when you're an Eagles player, we can start talking about Rugby World Cup 33 or 31, and we'll talk about your preparation for that. But definitely, it'll be great to hook up with you again and see how things are going with you.
Definitely, man. No, I appreciate it and appreciate the time and for having me on. It's been great to chat.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, I want to thank Sam Walsh for an amazing talk. And of course, I want to thank all you fans for checking out our YouTube channel. The subscribe, hit the like, all those great things. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you guys on the pitch.